Hey everyone, Madison Allworth here. I'm correspondent for Fox Business and Fox News. We wanted to jump on all of the Fox News socials because the story we're covering today has a lot to it. So for Fox Business, I cover AI, and one of the big focuses out of Davos has been all of Trump's speeches, including the remarks that he's made about Greenland. Part of the Greenland story is that of rare earth minerals. So that is what we're talking about today. Greenland has the largest repository of rare earth minerals. I'm going to break down what that means, what they're used for. So I have my report that I've done, that we've been working on. I'm going to go through all of that, but I also really want to hear from all of you. This is the benefit of doing a video online, is that you can send in questions and I'll get to answer them versus what I typically do, which is being on air for 90 seconds across Fox Business and Fox News with my report. So please be sure to send in questions about Greenland, about rare earth minerals, about the US position on what that resource would mean for us, and anything that I talk about that you have any questions about would be super helpful. So like I said, Greenland has these rare earth minerals. So what are rare earth minerals? These are metals and different alloys that are used for pretty much everything. So I'm going to pull up a full screen that we have for our report today. So when you think about rare earth minerals, they're really important for AI. These go into server cooling fans. That's essential for data centers. They go into semiconductors. That there is essentially a chip that powers all of AI and really all of your compute. Robotics, drones, hard drives, all of this is built with these rare earth minerals. It's not just AI. Rare earth minerals are also very critical for defense. So missile systems use a lot of rare earth minerals. Rockets for both space and for defense, also very important to have rare earth minerals as well there. So it is a resource that we use in all of modern life. The challenge that we have today is that China controls a vast majority. So I'm also going to pull up this full screen for you. We had this for our hit this afternoon on America Reports. So the US gets 70% of their rare earth minerals from China. That sounds like a lot. This next stat is even more shocking. China controls somewhere between 90 to 97% of rare earth minerals for the world. So we are incredibly dependent on China. The entire world is incredibly dependent on China. And like I said, this is needed for cars and AI and space. So the concern is, and we saw this with the pandemic, we see it currently with the Ukraine and Russia war. When you are completely dependent on one area, especially for us in the US, an adversary, and if relations sour and you no longer have access to this resource, that could be devastating. So how does Greenland fit into all of this? Well, like I said, Greenland actually has the largest deposit. According to the US Geological Survey, they have the largest reserves with no active mines. The reason being they have no active mines is because Greenland is mostly ice. There's this permafrost and just layers and layers of ice. So getting to the minerals for most of the country is quite difficult. However, there is a mine that is 2 years away from opening, and we were able to talk to the CEO. So that's Critical Metals Corp. They have a mine in the south of Greenland. So I'm going to pull up their location so you can get a sense. I wish I could pronounce this name properly, but this is the area in Greenland where they have a mine, Kortok. Let's take a look at just how big Greenland is, though. So that's where their mine is. That's 2 years away from being open and operational. If I zoom out on Google Maps, boom, 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 still not. There's all of Greenland. So most of Greenland is ice, but this southern portion, the southern fjords, do have some non-ice areas, which is where we see some of these mining capabilities existing. And where you're going to start to see some of this mining activity. Like I said, Critical Metals Corp, they have a mine there that they've been developing for 20 years, and they're anticipating that in the next 2 years, they will be operational. And even though they have not yet started extracting the minerals, they already have 100% of their offtake accounted for. Offtake is then what is processed to become the components for AI, for computers, for cars, for satellites. 50% of the offtake would go to the EU, 50% to the US. I think we're starting to get some questions in, so I'm going to pivot to those questions. What would compel Greenland-Denmark to ever give up such a valuable resource to the US? So I don't think Greenland would give up a valuable resource. Greenland, and specifically Denmark, so Greenland is essentially ruled by Denmark, and Denmark has very strict rules when it comes to industry. There is no oil and gas drilling in Greenland. Their biggest industry is fishing. So they have all of these resources and they've been very restrictive. They are now allowing for this mining. But just like in the US, there are private industries that get permits from the government to mine. So it is incredibly beneficial business for Greenland to greenlight, if you will, these mines, because then that means that independent business is operating the mines and there's usually tax or some sort of profit share or what have you. So I don't think it should be looked at as a giving up to the US, just in the same way that this company, Critical Metals Corp, is not a Greenland-based company, but they have clearance from Greenland to operate a mine for the next 150 some odd years. And because of that industry, they'll be able to make money and pay it forward. So it would not be given up. But we do know, because we have Lucas Tomlinson on the ground in Greenland, that there was a lot of concern around U.S. posturing for Greenland. And obviously my report is more focused on the rare earth minerals. But in general, there's been this conversation around what does U.S. involvement look like? Because the larger picture of all of this is that Greenland, while it's operated by Denmark, has seen a lot of China and Russia influence. I'm going to pull up this map so we can talk about that. So you see here, there's Greenland. It's 2,000 miles from the U.S., 2,000 miles from Moscow. And you see all these countries highlighted here. So this entire region is very important for the military, for space, as well as for passage through the waterways. And so we've seen an increase in the past few years of Russian influence and Chinese influence in the region, which is why, in part, President Trump has said that this is of critical national and international importance. I think it's a question of what influence do we have over that region? Is it one of the West or is it one of Russia and China? But I don't think Greenland, and we've seen this from Lucas Tomlinson on the ground, they do not want to give up sovereignty. But at this point, they're not a sovereign nation. Denmark is the country that kind of controls Greenland. So I think there's a lot of they would say there's a lot of opportunity for business there, but just what role the U.S. plays in that, I could see how there would be questions around that. Okay, how much rare earth do we get from Greenland currently, if any at all? So right now we get 0 rare earth from Greenland, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. That's in part because there's no active mines. They're not actively mining. We do have the Critical Metals Corp mine that should open in 2 years, but we don't get anything currently. U.S. mines, so the biggest rare earth imports are from China, Malaysia, and Japan. So where we currently get our rare earths from are China, Malaysia, Japan. And as I mentioned, we get 70% roughly from China. We have much better relations with Japan and Malaysia. With the tariff situation between the U.S. and China, there's been a lot of strife there, but we do rely heavily on them for rare earths, which is in part why so many folks outside of the current administration have been saying that Greenland is strategic for rare earths. Because I think it is important to mention President Trump is in Davos, Switzerland, and during his speech this morning, he kind of looked more at the national and international security component of Greenland versus the rare earths. It's been more within the private sector that folks have been saying Greenland would be incredible in terms of a strategic standpoint for rare earth metals. Those in opposition say it's not the best location, despite having the largest reserves. It's covered in ice, which is why I showed earlier the map. But the southern part of the fjords are open, and that is where we are seeing some of that mining activity happening. We've been talking for a little bit now, so I'm just going to rewind back for those that are just joining. My name is Madison Allworth. I'm a correspondent for Fox Business and Fox News, taking the opportunity to jump on the Fox social channels to talk at length about the story today that I've been covering with my producer, which is rare earth minerals in Greenland. We know that the U.S. has been talking extensively about our position with Greenland, and my story is digging into what the rare earth mineral setup is in the country, current mines available, and what it would mean for our safety as well as development as we race forward in AI and space. Okay, I'm going to jump back to some questions. Someone asked, has Trump talked about wanting these minerals when saying he wants to take over Greenland, or has he only said national security is the reason he wants to take it over? Great question. We kind of just touched on this. So during his speech at Davos, he really focused on national security. He did acknowledge that Greenland has these rare earth minerals, but his focus is on security, because when it comes to Greenland and the waterways surrounding it, we've seen an increase of Russian and Chinese influence over the past couple of years. He's concerned about the security of that region, which is super important for us for water passage as well as for space. So he's been focused on that, but he has acknowledged the vast amount of rare earth minerals that the country contains. But from his position, he's really focused on national security. But both him and his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, have discussed the rare earth minerals as something that exists in Greenland and something that would be potentially beneficial to the U.S. Okay, another great question. Would rare earths also power the Golden Dome? Why did Trump say Greenland is critical to the Golden Dome? So in terms of the Golden Dome, I cannot pretend to understand exactly how the manufacturing and setup of that works. However, what I can say, and I'm going to pull up this as I talk, rare earths are used for pretty much all modern defense and all modern computational needs. I have this great full screen that we used during our report today for the minerals that are used for AI applications. And you see in there drones, hard drives, semiconductor. We also know that these minerals are used for missiles as well as rockets. So part of the Iron Dome is a satellite system and rocket system. So yes, these minerals would be used for the Golden Dome. Now, is it important to mine the minerals from that location for a Golden Dome there? No, not necessarily. We could import and use minerals from elsewhere. We would need to, because developing mines takes years. So this is not like, if, depending on what happens with Greenland, it's not like the US will start mining or US companies will start mining tomorrow. It takes a long time. But yes, those minerals would be used for something like the Golden Dome. And then the second part of that question, why is it critical for a Golden Dome? I will pull up another map. Essentially, that location of Greenland between the US and Russia really covers the United States when it comes from Russia and from China. So let me pull up, I have a full screen as well that kind of shows the location of Greenland in relation to the US and Russia. So you can see Greenland is very strategically located. Having a Golden Dome from here would protect us well from Russia and China as well. So you could imagine that's why the president has floated this idea of a Golden Dome. And so then, while we're still getting some questions in, I just want to talk about these rare earth minerals for those that missed the top of the chat. So rare earth minerals are mined minerals that are used for everything in modern technology and warfare. You need them for AI cables, for data centers, for satellites, for rockets, for cars. And right now, one of the big concerns is that the vast majority of rare earth minerals are handled by China. The US alone gets 70% of our rare earth minerals from China. In terms of the global supply, China has anywhere from 90 to 97%. So for the whole West is interested in diversifying our critical mineral supply. We had the opportunity to sit down with Critical Metals Corp, which is a company that has a mine in the south of Greenland, and provided incredible insight into this space. You know, something they said was that decades ago, this was left to China because mining rare earth minerals was dirty business. And so Western countries were not as interested in doing it. Well, now mining across rare earths and otherwise has gotten much cleaner and safer. And so there is a real national security, international security component to making sure that there are allies that are involved in this space and that we're not fully reliant on China. The reason that Greenland fits into all of this is because the U.S. Geological Survey reports that Greenland has the largest reserves of any country that does not have an active mine. And again, Critical Metals Corp does have a mine in Greenland that should be open in 2 years. And they've been working on that for over 20 years, but currently does not have an active mine. Okay, we have another question. Have big tech companies in the U.S. said anything about wanting to invest in Greenland's rare earths? So when it comes to Greenland, the conversation this whole week, the last 2 weeks have been very interesting. There's been a lot of conversations in closed doors and then some public posturing. What I will say is we've seen a lot of activity on X from tech investors and leaders talking about the potential of Greenland. So I'm going to pull up this tweet here and show you all. This is from Josh Wolf. He's the co-founder of Lux Capital. So he's talking about Trump's speech and talks about the security standpoint, but then he talks about how really the south of Greenland, those two regions there, are such a resource for rare earth minerals. You see at the end, the United States contains almost none when it comes to global processing of rare earth minerals. The purchase of Greenland is not a land deal. It's an attempt to break a chokehold. The chokehold being what China has over us. China controls 90 to 97% of rare earth minerals. We get 70% of our rare earth minerals from China. So they have a bit of a chokehold on us. We need to maintain relations and make sure that that flow continues, because without it, we don't have rare earth minerals for car development, for rockets, for satellites, for AI, for computers, for most of modern technology and modern defense. So have we seen interest from investors? Josh Wolf is a perfect example talking about what benefit Greenland would have. So in terms of the space, yes, there is discussion around it. And then you look at a Critical Metals Corp, they've already gotten investment from European Union investors as well as investors here in the US. That's why 100% of their offtake, think of that as what they mine, the product that they will take out of the mines, 100% of that is already accounted for because they had investors from both the EU and the US that said, yes, we want you to mine and then give us the product here. So that is investor dollars that are going into rare earth minerals. So it's a very interesting, complicated space. I'm so glad that I was able to cover it today because it touches so many important pieces of modern life that we just don't think of. I know when I learned that we get 70% of our rare earth minerals from China, that really put in perspective just how reliant we are on China for such a crucial resource. And I think it's important to note that you'll hear a lot, and it's accurate. When it comes to Greenland, it's mostly ice. The vast majority of the country is ice. And it's a huge country. I'm going to pull this over so you can see. This is a great map we found online. Greenland is in orange, just so you can understand just how large the country is. That's it superimposed over the US. So it is huge, but most of it is covered in ice. It's just the south and a little bit in the north that are feasible for mining. Critical Metals Corp says that environment in southern Greenland is more mild, and that's why they can do it. But the vast majority of Greenland is covered in ice. I'm going to pull up another map for you. So this is on Google Maps. The southern part is where Critical Metals Corp has their mine. And then I'm just going to pull out so you can see again just how big Greenland is. So vast majority is ice. So yes, when people say it's ice, you shouldn't be mining there. For most of the country, yes. But it's undeniable that it has an incredible amount of rare earth minerals underneath it. And there are areas that are accessible, which is why you see mines like Critical Metals Corp in the south of Greenland. So it's a space to watch out for. I fully anticipate there being more developments of mines from different companies, regardless of whether the US controls Greenland or has a partnership with Greenland. This is a space that people are looking at because these metals and minerals are so essential for all parts of modern life. and Greenland has a ton of them. So it's been great. Please, if you have any follow-up questions, my handle is tagged here. This is a fascinating story and conversation. We'll continue to cover it across Fox News and Fox Business. So make sure you stay tuned for our coverage. Today has been a fascinating day. The president has been everywhere and talking about so many different things. So I'm glad that we could get on here to discuss. I will be heading to Fox News Radio to do a report there as well. But you can send me any questions on X and I'll see you all on air. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. It's such an important space, and I will see you online, on air, on the radio soon. Thanks, guys. Perfect. Great.